Okay, so if you're on Google Classroom, if you see my screen now, you'll see Google Classroom. And if you clicked on the link earlier, exit out because I had to do a little fix on it. Just if you're clicking on it now, you're in good shape. If you clicked on it earlier, either hit refresh or exit out and click on it again. So click on that and you'll get to today's date on there. So that's where you want to go right now is from Google Classroom. Click on today's link so that you have Wednesday up. And we're going to look at 1.3 today, 1.3 notes. Yeah, we'll wait another minute, maybe, before we get started here. We end at about 9:35. We're just going to run through the 1.3 notes. We're going to look at midpoint and distance formulas. And we have an essential question right there. As you look at that page, you can see the essential question. And that would be, how do you find the midpoint and distance of a line segment in a coordinate plane? Okay, so fill in your last name and your first name, and then choose the period, 3 for you guys, and hit next. And that'll take you to our core concept of our vocabulary. And, like I said, the first couple sections you get a lot, but section 3, we only have 2 words here. 2 new concepts. Now, I'm not promising there's always only going to be 2 words, but this one only has 2. The word midpoint and the word segment bisector, because we already really talked about distance in our last section. How distance is always positive. It was the absolute value of the difference of the 2 coordinates. So we already know what distance means, but let's look at what midpoint and segment bisector means. So there's a little arrow here from midpoint. So if you're watching my little presentation, like I said before, you do not have to write all this down. I'm not requiring that you fill it into your journal because I know not all of you have your journals yet. So all I require for you today is to fill in the Google form with me. It's just to watch me show you a bunch of stuff and fill in the answers as we're doing it. And then hit submit at the end. So that's all you're required to do today is to just see the section. You can go back later and fill it into your journal if you want a complete journal. I will give you links to all of the pages on the journal, and you can fill them all in. If you do have your journal already and you do want to copy some of these things in while you're watching, that's completely up to you. Not required. I'm not requiring pictures of it or anything like that. You just got to fill it in with me and hit submit at the end of the period. So let's take a look at the first point. The first word here is midpoint. So midpoint of a segment is the point that divides it into 2 congruent segments. Now you probably already know midpoint kind of sounds like middle point, and that is exactly what it is. It's the point that's in the middle of 2. So it's going to make 2 equal pieces. So you've got a dot here and you've got tick marks on each side because that means that they're equal pieces. Tick marks are another way to say congruent or equal. So if I put tick marks on 2 things, that means they're identical. So AM is congruent to MB there because of the midpoint. Cuts it exactly into 2 equal pieces, exactly in half. A segment bisector is any shape that we want it to be. It could be a point, a ray, a line segment, a plane, but the bisector part means it has to go through the midpoint. It has to cut the segment in half. So whatever shape we decide it to be, a point, a ray, a line segment, or a plane, it has to go through the M. It has to go through the midpoint to be a segment bisector. We kind of did that on our construction yesterday when we did a perpendicular bisector. We drew a line that was bisecting the segments. And it was actually making a perpendicular too. That was just a bonus. but it was a segment bisector yesterday. You were making a line that cut each segment in half. So that's what a segment bisector is. It's any shape we want it to be as long as it goes through the midpoint, as long as it goes through the center point, and it cuts it into two equal halves. All right, so here is the midpoint formula. The essential question was more focused on the XY axis. So what if you had a line, what if you had a point A and a point B, and you wanted to find out where the middle of that segment was? You connected A to B, but you wanted the middle point. Well, middle means half. So if you just want to find the halfway from A to B, that means you need to find the halfway point of the two x coordinates. That would be x plus x over 2. That's just finding the halfway point of those x's. And you need to find the halfway point of the y coordinates, so y plus y over 2. So hopefully it kind of makes sense that if you're looking for midpoint, then you need to find the middle point of the x numbers, and you need to find the middle point of the y numbers. That gets you the middle point of the whole segment. So that would be the formula, and I'm going to show you in a few seconds how that works. So you're finding the middle of the x numbers and the middle of the y numbers. The distance formula on a graph, so if you see a graph, you have an A point and a B point, and you want to find the distance. If they give you the graph, the best way is to use what we call Pythagorean theorem. Now, this is your introduction to the Pythagorean theorem. You should say hi to it because you're going to be using it all year. It is probably the most important theorem that you will use. You will see that formula all throughout all the sections. Whenever we want to find out how long something is on a graph, we use Pythagorean theorem. It's just quicker than using the distance formula, which you can see right here is this big square root, where you subtract the x numbers and square it, plus you subtract the y numbers and you square it. This formula comes from our Pythagorean theorem. Now, just as a just to go over it again, Pythagorean theorem works for every right triangle. So notice in this picture, from C, or this line C here, we made a rise and a run that gave us the right triangle. Our rise and our run gave us our A and our B. So we can do a squared plus b squared equals c squared to find out how long that is. That's just the quickest way if they're giving you the graph to find the length. So say hi to Pythagorean theorem. You're going to use them a lot. Okay, so get used to knowing that A and B are the two that are around the right angle. C is always the one across from the right angle. It's always the biggest one, C. All right, let's show you how that works. So you can just kind of watch the screen. I do want to give you a little idea of how we can find the midpoint and the distance of these 2 points. Now this picture is in your journal. When you get your journal, you look at it. You can see how I did on the journal itself. But let me just give you a little visual so you can watch and just see it. Okay, so there's 2 things we're going to look for. We're going to look for the midpoint. Okay, that's one thing we're looking for, and then we're looking for distance. Now, since they give us the graph, we can actually see it. I'm going to show you the short way first. Okay, to show you that if I'm given a graph, this is what I would do to find each one. Okay, now they also gave us point C over here. I actually wish point C was up here somewhere. But they didn't give us up there. They gave it to us down here. So I'm going to draw in the right triangle here. Okay, so that gives us a right triangle. And let's see what we can do here. So this technically is our rise number, and if I count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this would be a rise of 6. This technically down here is our run number, and if I count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we'd have an 8. But if you're talking about a real slope, you would be actually talking about a rise being positive and a run being positive. Okay, you would actually be using it the other direction. So you would have a rise of 6 and a run of 8 up here. Either way, it's the same. Either way, you made a rectangle out of it. You got the 6 on either side, and you got the 8 on the top and bottom. You can look at it either way, but from point B up to point A, I went up 6 and I went over 8. Okay, so I went up 6, I went over 8 to get from one point to the other point. If I want to find the middle, then I got to cut those in half. I'm going to divide them by 2. And that means I'm going to need to go up 3 and over 4 to find midpoint. Okay, this will help me find my midpoint. Okay, so if I go up 3 to here, and I go over 4 to here, there's my midpoint. Okay, because I took my slope and I cut it in half. I took my up 6 and I went over 8, and I divided it directly by 2 so that I got a rise of 3 and a run of 4 that would get me to my midpoint because I wanted a halfway point. So instead of going up 6 and over 8 to get the middle point, I cut them in half and I go up 3 and over 4. So my midpoint there is over -1 and up +1. Okay, there's your midpoint. That's the short way. And I know it looks long because I was explaining stuff. Normally, I would have just taken 6 and divided it by 2, and I would have taken 8 and divided it by 2, and I would have gone 3 and 4, and there's my midpoint, because those are half of each one. Let's look at the distance now. So the midpoint, I said you could do your rise and run, but you could also do the formula. I want to show you the longer way too. You could have taken the two x numbers, -5 and +3, -5 plus +3, and divided it by 2 to find the middle of them. And -2 and +4, you could have added those together and then divided it by 2 to find the middle. So you could have had a -2 over 2, which is -1, a +2 over 2, which is +1, and you would have gotten the same answer. Okay, same answer right there, -1, 1, to get your midpoint. Okay, so you could have used the formula where you added the x numbers and cut it in half, and then added the y numbers and cut it in half, and got your midpoint. You're going to use this if they don't give you the graph. You're just going to use the formula. It's quicker. It's quicker than drawing a graph and counting. I would probably use this if they gave me the graph and I wanted to find the middle. I would just see how far is it up and how far is it over. Okay, I'm just going to divide that in half. So that means instead of going up 6, I'm going to go up 3, and instead of going over 8, I'm going to go over 4. Okay, there's my midpoint. It's the middle of my slope. So that's what you could do on a midpoint. Now at distance, you're going to want to find out how long this piece is right here. Okay, we're going to call it C. And we're going to call the 8 and the 6 down here. I'm going to get rid of these dividing by 2s. We're going to call this the A and the B. Now you don't have to put 6 as A. You could put 6 as B, and you could put 8 as A. As long as they're the two that surround this right angle, you could put either one as A and B. So the quickest way is to just do 6 squared plus 8 squared equals C squared. Since I want to find out how long this last side is, I can plug in A squared plus B squared, and I can get my C squared. So 36 plus 64 equals C squared. 100 equals C squared, and then I just square root both sides to get the answer. C is going to be a 10. So this answer right here is a 10. Now again, if they just gave you these two coordinates and they didn't give you a graph, so you can't draw in your right triangle, then you're going to want to use that big square root that they showed you in the journal on that page. You're going to want to subtract the two x numbers. -5 minus 3 squared. Plus, you're going to want to subtract the two y numbers. -2 minus 4 squared. So that was your x minus your x. That was your y minus your y. And then you're just going to simplify it. So you get -8 squared plus -6 squared, which gives you a 64 plus a 36 again, which gives you the square root of 100, which still gives you 10. So it still works. You still get 10. It just takes more work. If you already had a graph, just draw your right triangle and do Pythagorean theorem. It's quicker. If you don't have a graph and they just give you the two coordinates, then plug it into your distance formula, and it's a little bit quicker than drawing a graph and then drawing the right triangle and then doing Pythagorean theorem. Too many steps if you don't have a graph. You should use the distance formula. But if you have the graph, and most of the time you're going to have a graph, so most of the time you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to find your distance. It's quicker to do that. All right, you'll be able to see all of this work on your journal pages when you get them. When I send you the link to them, you'll be able to see all that. So I'm just going to clear this off right now. I just wanted you to see it, how to get those, and I'll show you where the answers go. So right underneath it, you go here, midpoint is, and you hit parentheses, -1, comma, space 1, and then your distance was 10. So just put that in there and then hit next. And that puts us right back here to number 1, 2, and 3. Now these we can do in our head, so I won't even need to show you anything on these. Let me just walk you through it. Okay, so look at this first one. They want us to identify the segment bisector. So what shape is this that's cutting AB in half? And it is a point. It's point M. So this is a point. The shape is a point. And then they want us to find out what is the length of AB, because there's no bar here. So this time they want the number. So if it's 13 here, and that's a tick mark, and that's another 13, then from A to B is going to be 26. So 13 plus 13, you would get 26. So you put 26 into 1B. So 1A is a point, and 1B is 26. And then moving down, I put the picture for each one, so we don't have to keep scrolling back up. Okay, so number 2, the shape from M to C is a ray. That's a ray. And if one side is 8 and the other side is 8, that means the whole thing is 16. 8 plus 8, you get 16. And then number 3, this time the segment bisector that's going through the midpoint is a line with a little L, so it's a line. The line is our segment bisector, and if both sides are 26, 26 plus 26, you get a 52 for that one. All right, now they gave us a little bit extra work this time, because we have to actually solve it. So this is why we did our algebra review last week, just to remind you of how to solve equations, because you're going to see that quite a bit in geometry. But the first one is, what shape do we have here? From M going in T's direction with one arrow, got to be a ray. You've got your ray there. Now let me show you how to solve these 3, and then we can plug in our answers. Okay, so let me show you here. We know that there's tick marks. That's telling us that they're equal. So if I know they're equal, I can set up an equation. Equal means equation. Okay, and if I have an equation, now I can solve the equation to find x. So by knowing that there was tick marks here, I knew I could set up an equal equation because the tick marks means equal. So now just subtract your 2x like we did last week. You'll get 4x equals 4 because the 2x is canceled. And dividing by 4 on both sides, you get x is 1. Now don't go ahead plugging in a 1 down there, because it's not asking us to find the value of x. It's asking us to find the length of EF. So how far is it from E all the way to F is what they want to know. So you got to take that 1 and you got to plug it into that x right there. 6 times 1, I'm sure you could do in your head, and that's going to be a 6. Now you don't have to plug it into this x, because we know, since it was a tick mark, that they're both 6. So yeah, you now know that that answer was 12. So 12 was EF in number 4. So 4B, you're going to go down and put in 12. Number 5, you got x plus 15 equals 7x minus 3 because of the tick marks. They're equal. We could make an equal sign. The tick marks allow us to make equal signs because they're equal pieces. Now I would get rid of the small one, so I would subtract x. That means I'm going to need to add 3 to both sides. And I'm going to get 18 equals 6x. And when I divide by 6 on both sides, I get x is 3. So I need to plug a 3 in here. I don't have to plug it into the other side because I know it's equal. So 3 plus 15, I'm going to get 18 here. That means I'm going to get 18 there. That means my whole answer is 36. Because I want the whole e to f. I want both 18s put together. The last one, you're going to make these equal right here. I'm just going to show it on the picture. So I would subtract 3x, and I would add 12 to both sides. So you would get 8 equals 2x. And dividing by 2, you get x is 4. So if I plug in a 4, I get 3 times 4 minus 4. So 12 minus 4, I'm going to get 8 on both sides. So that means my whole answer is 16. Because you got 8 for the one side, you got 8 for the other side. 8 plus 8, you get 16. Now you'll have all the work to those on the last page of this form. You'll be able to see them again. All the work will be there. If you want to copy them into your journal eventually, all the work is on the last page. And I'll get you a link to that work as well. So let me close this off and go back and put those in. We said this one was 12. EF's shape was a line. And we said that one was 36. And then this shape was a point M for number 6. And then we said that the whole thing was 8 plus 8, so it was 16. All right, moving down to the last 6. There's 7, 8, 9, and then we have 10, 11, 12. So let's check those out. It says we got the 2 endpoints. We want to find the middle point. And they did not give you a graph. So I'm thinking the best way is just to use my little midpoint formula. Just find the halfway point of the 2 x's. And then find the halfway point of the 2 y numbers. If you do that, you'll get your midpoint. So the halfway point of the 2 x numbers, negative 4 plus 0, over 2, that's going to be negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. No, negative 4 over 2, which is going to give me a negative 2, sorry. And then you've got 3 plus 5. And we want to find the halfway point of that. 3 plus 5 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. So the first answer was negative 2, 4. So in number 7, make sure you put parentheses, negative 2, comma, space 4. And plug it in like that. And you'll get number 7. 8, you're going to add the 2 x numbers. Negative 2 plus 10. So there's an x and there's an x. We're going to add them and divide by 2. And your y number plus your y number would be 7 plus negative 3 divided by 2. So negative 2 plus 10 is going to give me an 8. 8 divided by 2 is going to give me a 4. So 4 is the halfway point of negative 2 and 10. 7 plus negative 3 is positive 4. Divided by 2 is positive 2. So 2 is the halfway point between 7 and negative 3. And that would be number 8, 4, 2. These are your midpoints. I could put M next to all these. These would be your middle points. If I graphed P and I graphed Q, this point right here would be right halfway between P and Q if I connected it. Okay, so that would be the same on number 8. Number 9, you've got your 3 plus your 9. Those are your 2 x numbers. And you've got your negative 15 and your negative 3 are your 2 y numbers. So you've got 12 divided by 2 is 6. Negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9. So you got 6, negative 9. Okay, so let me put those answers in for you. Again, you're going to have the work to these on the last slide. So I just wanted to show you how we do them. close that off. I'll put those in really quick. So you had -2, comma, space 4. Here, this one, you had 4 and 2. Oops, not 23, 2. And then this one, you had 6, -9. Okay, so that was 7, 8, 9. There's 3 left. And I want to draw you a picture of what these look like. Okay, so let me show you what these look like. What they're actually trying to show you here is that they're giving you the midpoint, M. They're giving you the midpoint and they're giving you one endpoint. They want us to find the coordinates of the other endpoint. So in other words, they're giving you J. They're not giving you K. That's the one you want to figure out. But they are giving you point M in the middle. So you've got two of the points. You just want the last point. But remember, the key thing is that these are the same distance on both sides of M. Okay, so if you look at this point right here, how did I get from 7 to 1? I had to subtract 6 to get there. 7 minus 6 gives me a 1. So if I want to keep M in the middle, remember, it's got to stay in the middle because you got your tick marks. That means I need to do another -6. So 1 minus 6 is going to give me -5. So my point K is going to start with -5 because I did the same thing on both sides of M. I did 7, I went down 6 to get to 1, and so I got to take 1 and then go down 6 and get to -5. How do we get from 2 to -2? If you're at +2 and you go down to -2, you went down 4. So that means I got to go down 4 more. So I got to take -2 and I got to go down 4 more. That's going to give me down to -6. So your first answer for K right here, actually in number 10, we'll put it right, you don't put K. Just put the coordinate. It would be -5, -6. That's going to be your other endpoint. You had J, you had M. Your other endpoint would be K, would be that point, -5, -6. Okay, moving on to 11. You were at 5 and you went down to 0. So you went down 5 units. So we got to go down 5 more units. So you're at 0, you want to go down 5 more units. That's going to put you at -5. You're at -2 and you come up to -1. You went up 1 unit. You were at -2 and you went up to -1. So you went up 1. Now you got to go up another 1. So -1 up 1 more would put you at 0. So -5, 0 would be your point K there. So you would just put -5 and 0. You're just keeping it in the middle. You're keeping M in the middle, and you'll see the work on these on the next slide. Now I would take this fraction and make it a decimal. It's easier to find the middle or to find out how far you got there. I'd change that to -4.5. So if I was at 2 and I went down to -4.5, that means I went down 6.5 to get there. I started at 2, I went down 6.5 units, I got to -4.5. So I got to go down another 6.5. So -4.5 and -6.5 is going to give me -11 total. So that means that this -4.5 would be halfway between the 2 and the -11. Because it has to be, it's my midpoint. Here I went from 16 down to 7. I went down 9 units. So I got to go down 9 more units. 7 and then take away 9. So you had 7, you take away 9, you're going to be down into -2. So your last point there would be -11, -2. -11, -2. Now let me show you those on the next slide because you have all the work again on there. Let me close that off. and hit next. I'm not going to type them in. You'll see them. So if you hit next, you're going to see this pop up where you had all the answers. This is what your page 16 on the journal looks like. And you can see I've got the work here for 10, 11, 12, but this time I did it in column form. I just made sure I did the same thing to both sides. So if I went down 6, I went down 6 more. If I went down 4, I went down 4 more, and so on. So I have to make sure I keep M in the middle. M has to stay in the middle. So all your answers are down here at the bottom. You can go back and just recheck, and then you're going to hit submit there. Hit submit, and that gets you today's notes credit. You didn't have to show me the work. You have it here. You can write this into your journal if you want to. You'll get links for this if you want a complete journal. You have all this. It'll help you. It'll help you remember how to do the midpoint. It'll help you how to remember how to find another endpoint. Those two concepts come up. You're going to see them. All right, let's go to the last thing for today. It was just your Desmos review, and you want to sign in. So I'm just going to show it to you. It's not due until, next week, but I would probably want to get it done as quick as you can. So I just want to show you, you might want to log in and look at it just so you can see it. You can see what's there. I'll show you what you should see on your page by now. By today, Wednesday, this is what you should see. I'm going to go to a student page for period 3. This is what my period 3 students should see. You should see a green check mark for this construction and 100%. If you don't see that, then pop in during office hours and I can help you walk you through the rest of them if you didn't get that. So you should see the green check. You should see the new assignment. It says due the 24th, which is next week, Monday, but I might string it out to another day or two. Might give you till the 26th. But there's only 3 in each one. So you're just going to practice 3 on each one of these, and it's from the first 3 sections. So we have segment, addition, postulate. We've got some midpoints and endpoints and the distance formula. This should also be green. If you're done and it has 100%, this will light up in green. Okay, so mine's not quite finished yet because I was just showing a few of them, but you should have a green one if it's all done. So that's what your Delta math should look like. And that is all I have for today. So you did your notes, you submitted it, you got that submission in, and then you logged into your Delta Math just to see it. Again, if you have time today, I would work on it today. Maybe during office hours, if you're free, I would work on it then, and that way you can pop in if you got questions. And if not, we'll have maybe a little time over the next few days in class to maybe work on it and ask some questions on it as well. Are there any other questions before I let you go here? Let's see what we got on the chat. What was number 12? Let me see. Number 12 was the point -11, -2. -11, -2. -11. Oh, they got it right there. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Distance on the first page was 10. 10. Title for the textbook and journal is just the textbook. You don't have to get the big textbooks, but it's Big Ideas Geometry. And the journal you do want to get, for sure, get the journal. It's just the Geometry Student Journal is all it is. Geometry Student Journal. Any other last minute questions?
Do we need to get anything for the trigonometry section?
Not yet. No, we'll get those in March. So you don't have to get any of those yet. Just get the Geometry Journal, and if you want a big textbook, you can also get the Geometry textbook. You don't have to have that because we have an online version of that where you can get that through Big Ideas. So, but it's okay to have one if you want it. Any other questions before I let you go? Because class ends here in about 2 minutes, and I want you to be able to get to third period or fourth period. Starts at 9:45. If not, then you guys can go. Have a great day. We'll see you